Hey folks, in this short video I want to show you how you can take the standard SubQuery project and strip it down to its bare minimum to understand more about how it works. To do this, let's start off with the standard command, the SubQuery init, where we can create a starter project very easily. Let's go sample project like so. Let's go ahead and accept the defaults. Let's go into the project folder. We'll run yarn or yarn install to download the node dependencies before moving on. There we go. Now next up, let's go yarn code gen to generate the JavaScript, and then we'll build the code before running this in our Docker container. So if you don't have Docker, it's really quite neat to set up and use because it makes running your projects very quick indeed. So let's go Docker compose and we'll pull down the required images first. And then we'll run the up command. And what this does is it will spin up the SubQuery node, start synchronizing so we can query against the Polkadot mainnet blockchain. So you can see here that the node has started and it's starting to fetch blocks now from 1 to 100, 101 to 200, etc. So let's now go to localhost port 3000. We'll do a refresh, and this is our playground where I've got the standard query on the left hand side. I'm searching for the field key. Let's go play, and you can see the block height being returned 656, 732, etc. So we know that this is working. But what's actually happening under the covers? Well, let's go ahead and stop this, Control C, and we'll take a look at the code. So I've got VS Code here, and let's jump into our sample project. You can see up above. Let's go into our source, our mapping file, looking at the JavaScript here in the mapping handlers.typescript. And we've got three functions: handle block, handle event, and handle call. So let's go ahead and delete the bottom two, like so. Let's save it. And what I'm going to do is let's try getting this up and running. So we'll run yarn code gen. We'll also build it. And then we'll run it in Docker, just to show you what happens and what kind of errors you may expect. And it's starting to fetch blocks now, but you see an error saying failed to index block at height 957 handle call, and it can't find this function. So this is the error that you'll encounter when you remove the two functions. Now, to make this actually work, what you want to do is jump into the project YAML file. This is also called the manifest file, and you'll see that there are references to handle call and handle event. So this manifest file, it can be seen as the entry point of your project, and it defines most of the details on how SubQuery will index and transform the chain data. So I need to get rid of these lines of code here and just tell SubQuery that I've got one handler and it's called handle block. So let's delete these and run this again. And it's always good to regenerate the TypeScript and rebuild the files. And let's run this back in Docker. And now you can see we're starting to fetch the blocks once again, but there are no errors. So that is great. Let's also go back into our query. Let's hit run, and you can see the block height is 1247 and increasing. Now the next thing we want to do is rename the field 1, because this is not really meaningful or descriptive. So the way we do this is, again, Let me cancel the node here and jump back into the code. And if you jump into the schema.graphql file, you'll see that there are the fields being defined. Field 1, 2, 3, etc. So let's delete all of these except for field 1. Let's go ahead and rename this to, say, block height. Save that. And now if I go ahead and try and build this, let's see what happens. So generating the TypeScript, let's go yarn build. And what you'll notice is that there's an error. That's because we're still referring to records.field1 in our mapping handler file. So we're going to have to change this. So let's go back into VS Code. VS Code has automatically picked this up. It knows that field 1 doesn't exist anymore. So let me double click on this and delete it. Let's go dot, and it's picked up the new parameter or the starter entity called block height. So let me choose that, hit enter or save, and then let's go back into our terminal screen here. Let's generate the TypeScript. Let's build the project, and let's go and run this in Docker. And now the node has started, but there's an error where it's failed to index the block height. Now, this is looking for a starter entity, column block height, that doesn't exist. And let's cancel this. The way to get rid of this error is that we can go and remove the existing blockchain, because we've made a change to the starter entity. What we need to do is re-index from 0. So you'll see that we've got this .data file. Let's go ahead and delete this. This is where basically the blockchain is being stored on your file system. So remove that. Let's go Docker up again. The node has started up above, and now it's starting to fetch blocks once again. So the final test here is, let's go into our playground. And if I hit run or play here, you'll see an error. That's because field 1 ascending does not exist. So let's remove this. And now we've got something called block height ascending. And then also our field 1 is not correct because it's block height. So if I hit play, now you can see we've got a more meaningful and descriptive variable or field called block height. And if I hit run, this is incrementing as we would expect. So there you go, a very quick video on how you can strip down the standard starter project and just focus on the single handle block function and modify the variables or the fields to make it more meaningful, in this case block height. And in a future video we'll take a look at what this code actually means as well.